This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Hello, welcome to today's news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. Kevin Smith here.
And I'm Kayla King.
Before we get to the top stories we're tracking, let's get to today's front page comment of the Kaieteur News. The opposition leader cannot remain silent. Several months ago, newly appointed leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, indicated to this publication, and by extension the nation, that he would not be saying anything on the oil sector, and that time because he was waiting on comprehensive and accurate information from overseas. Weeks later, the same Mr. Harmon said he was still waiting as he wanted to get the right information and speak authoritatively. Still later, the same Mr. Harmon said that apparently Kaieteur News knows more about Guyana's oil than he and his coalition group do. And now the very same Mr. Harmon is telling Guyanese that he will not be saying anything on this country's oil. When it comes to the country's most lucrative resource, the opposition leader is strongly not saying much. To say that we are disappointed at the silence of the leader of the opposition is an understatement. As the representative of a substantial constituency, we would have expected Mr. Harmon to have been more strident in his comments on the oil blocks giveaway and the failure of the government to claw back significant concessions during the Payara negotiations. The opposition is beholden to its supporters to adopt a position on these issues. It has a duty to let the nation know where it stands on the issue of Guyana's oil wealth. It is obligated to hold the government accountable for its actions. The failure to speak on such a matter of public importance, unfortunately, may be perceived as a dereliction of its responsibilities. The opposition needs to be forthright with its supporters and the nation and with itself. Its silence is sending a deafening signal which runs the risk of being perceived as sharing a common understanding with the PPPC government and the oil companies. And with that, we'll bring you the top stories we're tracking. Demerara and Carotene oil blocks hold potential 4.8 billion barrels according to a report, and you get the understanding what qualifies as local in the draft local content policy, part 1. Dr. Adams says Exxon violated Liza 1 EIA by producing 130,000 barrels per day, and Bristow, currently sole operator for offshore helicopter support to Guyana and Suriname oil sector, poised to see highest growth rate this part of the region. Stay tuned to stay informed.
Digicel Prime Bundles just got better with 3 new apps. Watch more with PlayGo. Share more with Sportsmax. Read more news with Loop. Listen more with D-Music. Plus extra data. It's simply more bundled together. 51 gigabytes for 7 days for only $2,000. Live the experience with Digicel. Activate today on the My Digicel app.
And now for the news in detail. The joint venture Frontera Energy Corporation and CGX Energy on Tuesday announced the results of a completed independent prospective resource study of the Quarantine and Demerara blocks. McDaniel and Associates Consultants Limited, an independent external qualified resource evaluator, contracted by the venture, identified a combined median estimate of 4.84 billion oil equivalent barrels in the two blocks. Most of the prospects were identified in the Quarantine block, which holds a potential 4.3 billion oil equivalent barrels. The remaining 5 prospects were identified in the Demerara block with a median estimate of 525 million barrels.
And not necessarily in light of the fact that the government will be holding a month-long consultation period for the draft local content policy, Kaieteur News and Kaieteur Radio will be highlighting some of the key points you should pay keen attention to. But before we dive into the provisions of those, it is imperative that one understands the purpose of the document, along with the need to ensure certain critical terms are clear. The policy proposes the term local, to mean in the case of individuals, citizens, and Guyana, in the case of firms, companies beneficially majority owned or 51% by citizens, and in the case of goods and services, those provided by local individuals or firms.
And now let's tell you, by producing 130,000 barrels of oil per day, ExxonMobil Guyana violated the terms set out in the Environmental Impact Assessment for its Liza Phase 1 project. This is according to Dr. Vincent Adams. According to the assessment, the Liza Destiny oil vessel was designed to receive the full production well stream for the development wells and will process crude oil at a design rate of 100,000 barrels of oil per day, with the potential to safely operate at sustained peaks of up to approximately 120,000. However, no numerical details of what production levels were at the time provided in that February 5th update. In fact, when asked at the time to provide the figures, ExxonMobil's government and public affairs advisor, Janelle Prasad, refused to do so.
In other news, contractors engaged in projects in Region 5 and 6 have been warned to complete their work within the specifications of their contracts, so said Minister of Public Works Bishop Juan Edgell. The minister warned that if allegations about the use of quote-unquote sappy materials are found to be accurate, the engineer, clerk of works, and the contractor will be responsible for rectifying the same at no cost to the ministry. He then urged residents to be respectful in voicing their concerns to the contractor. It is now 12 hours 8. Coming up after the break, repairs commence on ExxonMobil's defective gas compressor. Opposition received no invite to draft local content policy consultation, according to Patterson, and ex-MP quits AFC over ties with APNU. AFC says you will have people coming off, but that hundreds have joined. Meanwhile, government probing reports of persons entering Guyana with fake COVID-19 test results. Do stay tuned.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. ExxonMobil said that repairs and upgrades have commenced on its defective gas compressor, which is currently with its manufacturer, MAN Turbo, in Germany. This followed a detailed inspection by the technical experts at the MAN Energy Solutions workshop, ExxonMobil said in an operational update. The company has given operational updates to the press for the past week. The compressor was cleared with customs in Germany, according to a February 12th update, and was unpacked and disassembled for inspection and assessment.
Meanwhile, Shadow Oil and Gas Minister David Patterson yesterday disclosed that the opposition received no invitation to the draft local content policy consultations, which started on Monday. Patterson gave this answer in response to questions posed during an AFC press conference yesterday. With the APNU AFC coalition representing over 200,000 of Guyana's voting population, one would have expected to see it being represented at the consultation.
And moving on. Former AFC Member of Parliament Reynard Ward on Monday tendered his resignation from the party over its, and I quote, broken, abusive, and one-sided relationship, with AFC leader Kemra Dramjatan yesterday referred to the party's ties with the larger APNU. Ward served in Parliament from April 2019 to the end of the last administration's term, and as a replacement MP after court battles following the 2018 no-confidence motion determined it unlawful for some coalition dual citizen MPs to sit in the House.
In other news, the government is currently investigating reports of fake COVID-19 PCR COVID-19 test results being used by persons entering Guyana. This was revealed by the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, yesterday. The minister said, however, that specific reports have not been received of persons attempting to leave the country with fake results. The health minister did not disclose which countries the reports come from.
And moving on. Yesterday, Rayon Alves, the East Penitent's 19-year-old driver of the motorcar that was involved in the Homestretch Avenue accident on Sunday, which claimed the lives of two teenagers, made his first court appearance. He was placed on $600,000 bail. Alves appeared in the Georgetown Magistrates Court before Senior Magistrate Leron Daly, slapped with two charges. The first charge alleged that he drove a motor vehicle in a manner dangerous to the public, thereby causing the death of 19-year-old Dakera Gittens and secondly, 18-year-old Tanika Haley.
With the time moving on to 12 hours 11, it is now time for a COVID-19 update. Coronavirus cases 110.5 million, deaths 2.4 million, and in the cases of recovery 85.4 million.
Locally, the Ministry of Health yesterday recorded a 6 to 9-year-old female from Region 4 as the latest COVID-19 fatality. Her death has since increased the COVID-19 death toll to 189. The ministry also revealed 51 new COVID-19 infections yesterday, increasing the total number of cases to 8,313. 8 patients are in the COVID-19 ICU, 17 in institutional quarantine, 42 in institutional isolation, and 555 in home isolation. Additionally, a total of 7,519 persons have recovered to date.
And sourced by CNN, Novavax says its scientists are testing a new version of its COVID-19 vaccine that specifically targets the coronavirus variant first identified in South Africa. More evidence suggests the UK variant is linked to more severe disease, researchers say. More than 600,000 Americans will have died of the virus by June 1st, according to the latest prediction by a prominent forecast model.
And that just about brings us to the end of today's news at noon. But before we go, let's head over to page 7 of the Kaieteur News dedicated to being blunt. This budget is another jet. A jet which the heels are taken off, the cockpit in functioning, and the pilot flying a dream. That was the quote given by leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, on February 16, 2021. If this is Mr. Harmon's idea of an effective rebuttal to the PPPC's budget proposal and an indicator of what the opposition's arguments will be like when time comes for budget debates, it is unacceptable. Now is not the time for the opposition to present useless anecdotes and metaphors when the PPPC is trying to pass a $383 billion budget. Mr. Harmon, you are abdicating your duty to this country if you are not mounting an effective critical analysis of the PPPC's budget. Get it together. And with that, we've come to today's News at Noon. I am Kevin Smith.
And I am Kayla King.
Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
The time is now 12 hours 15.